Welcome back to the channel. My name is Stefty. Today we are talking about the MPC One. It has officially been out for 2 years now, and I actually jumped in right at the beginning when it first became available. So I want to give a 2-year perspective. You know, I've been using it for 2 years. I've been making videos on it, obviously. Just give my perspective about the process and what it's been like. So yeah, that's what this video is going to be about. I will say that this is the first MPC platform that I've jumped into. I had not owned any of the previous generations, so take that for what it is. In the past, I've been heavily DAW-based, and obviously dabbled with hardware-based, DAW-less setups with things like the Octatrack and Digitact and all that type of stuff. It's been an interesting journey learning the platform of what Akai has built for this current generation of MPC. And there's a lot of pros and there's some cons as well, for sure. So hopefully this video can help illuminate some of those perspectives that could help you decide whether or not you want a piece of gear like this in your studio. So my main usage to date has been a hardware hub for the MPC One. I am a big fan of grabbing several pieces of gear, chaining them all together, and then making jams, beats, songs, that type of stuff out of them. And in that perspective, it has been very, very good. It's basically become my main hardware-based platform at this point. For a while I was doing a lot of stuff with the Digitact and the Octatrack, but over the past year, I've realized that the flexibility that is afforded with the MPC platform has just been so good that I end up missing the things that I have available to it, even though I might be missing some other stuff in those other platforms. And also, after purchasing the MPC One, I did end up getting a Live 2 as well, because I like the features so much of the MPC One that I thought it would be great to have another MPC and also have the battery, speakers, and that type of stuff, and the additional output. So I have kind of been piggybacking back and forth between like Live 2, MPC One. The Live 2 might be like out of the studio somewhere else for like a month or something like that, and then vice versa ends up flipping. Like I might bring the MPC One to a different location for a little small installation to work on stuff. Again, very hardware-based focused type of productions that have been done with the MPCs that I've got. That's not to say that I don't still use a DAW, because I definitely like Ableton, and I've been curious about Bitwig and all that stuff, so I'm not like a purist in that sense. Like I like different workflows, and I like experiencing what they have to offer for me from a creative perspective. And I definitely look at the MPC platform as another creative brush when it comes to creating things, obviously. So you can use it basically standalone, obviously, without any additional hardware. I would say for the sounds themselves with like the plugins, I think they do a pretty good job. I'm not blown away by the sounds, like the synth sounds and stuff like that, but they definitely get the job done if you need something in a pinch. So if you want to just take the box by itself and use it, in a hotel or something like that, like totally usable for that. And also, if you have a bunch of samples you've already preloaded onto your MPC, then even better, because obviously it is a sampling beast. At least in my opinion, I think it's a sampling beast. In particular, the multi-sampling of instruments, it's been really awesome being able to just hook up another, like say analog synth or something like that, multi-sampling a patch that I've created and then having it available in the MPC. That has been really, really cool. Real quick, if you are enjoying this video, a like, subscribe, and comment below definitely helps out. We also just recently launched a Patreon, so if you'd like to support us even further on there, we will be dropping some multi-samples and loops and various things for the MPC. We plan on doing that with each video as it seems fit, so thank you very much if you do end up supporting us on there. So again, as a sampler, amazing to be able to just grab stuff really quick and then slice it up, put it in the pads and all that, and then the multi-sampling feature, which is right here, be able to auto sample. That's been really, really cool. You can even like multi-sample stuff that's in the MPC as well. So you have several synthesizers loaded up with a bunch of plugins, and you want to convert those to multi-samples, like you can do that in this box as well. In terms of portability, it is unfortunate that Akai did not put a battery into this. The MPC Live 2 has a battery. Of the 2 boxes, I think the MPC One should have been the one to get a battery, but alas, it doesn't. You can get a external battery and hook it up into the power supply. I haven't done that yet, but I know a lot of people have mentioned that, so just do a quick Google search if you're looking for stuff like that, because you can get an external battery to hook up to it. My feeling on that is like, well, now you're dealing with 2 pieces of gear, so it's not something you just pick up and go with. If you look at something like the Synthstrom Deluge, which I do not own, that has a battery built into it, so it's really good pick up and go type of setup with a different workflow, obviously. So it would have been nice if they put a battery in here, and maybe a MPC One Mark II in the future could include stuff like that. In fact, things that I would like to see in the future, if they were to modify the hardware, is at least one more stereo pair of an output. Because right now, if you wanted to say patch in an effects pedal or something, like you wouldn't be able to send out separate pieces of audio while your drums are still going into an effects pedal and then route it back in. There's only a stereo out and stereo in that you can utilize with that, so that would be nice in the future. Also no Wi-Fi as well. I think that's kind of one of those things where it was a cost savings type of thing for this platform. But when you look at over the past 2 years of what has been updated with firmware and all that, I think Akai has done a pretty awesome job. It's not perfect by any means, but it's definitely been an awesome job, because before, when I first bought this, there was no MIDI over USB. There was no audio interface support or anything like that. Those were kind of like pipe dreams. It was like, oh man, it would be amazing if this supported an audio interface. So in terms of software, firmware support, it's been really awesome to see how much innovation has happened on this platform. But with those firmware updates, it has not been all roses and stuff. There's been a lot of bugs actually, and they have not been fixed. Like well, I mean, they've obviously been fixing some bugs, but there has been bugs that have been introduced with say like 2.10 and all that just have not been fixed. In fact, I did a video on the Q-Link, setting up Q-Link so you can do real-time mapping and like effects control and all that for performances. And to this day, they still haven't fixed a bug where those don't get saved right now. At least I think to this day. Correct me if I'm wrong. Which is unfortunate because it's such a cool platform with really great utility and complexity, and then to have those type of bugs show up and not get fixed relatively quickly, it's like I said, it's unfortunate. When did 2.10 come out? Came out around July, or it says July 20th or something like that. So MPC 2.10, July 20th. I'm currently recording this in February of 2022, so we're looking over 6 months later and we still haven't seen a bug patch for a lot of features. The audio interface support has been really great to have as an option, but there's definitely been times where weird things have happened in the software and the platform. And if you're doing a lot of professional projects, that can definitely make you nervous, especially live. If you're doing a live performance, it makes your trust in the hardware a little shaky, knowing that there's like these bugs that could possibly show up. Bugs happen. I mean, firmware is a reality now in today's day and age with the way like chips are being programmed and all that for these really cool devices. Bugs happen, So while I wish Akai would update their bugs faster, I don't fault them in saying like, oh, there shouldn't be any bugs or anything like that. Like, these things are complex and people are writing them and mistakes are made and all that, so I totally get that. Speaking of software, there is the MPC software as well, where you can hook up your hardware, make it a controller essentially for the computer, and then have access to an unlimited version of the MPC platform right there. I personally don't use it because I like using Ableton, and when I want to switch over to a computer, I usually like to switch platforms. So MPC, I'm in like writing / jamming type of mode, and then when I want to finish something or like do overdubs or make a mix, I like transferring things to Ableton to do a finished mix. And also I have a suite of analog gear, so I prefer using my analog gear when I'm officially finishing something. One thing that is nice though about the MPC software is it technically gets rid of some limitations that you have via the hardware version. For instance, there's only 8 audio tracks that are available in the hardware version. So if you go to the audio side, you'll see just like you can only do up to 8 tracks right there. There's also only a 5-minute limit to the audio tracks on the hardware version. So if you don't want those limits, you got to use the MPC software. And if you want to use like VST plugins or stuff like that, you got to use the MPC software for that. It's nice that there is the option. So if you do a really complex arrangement on the hardware and then you need to take it a step further and you don't want to change platforms, it's really nice that the software version exists, so you can do that if you want. Also, another thing that was updated from firmware updates that did not exist when I first got the MPC One was the ability to read the SD card while plugged in as a standalone as a controller to the computer. So now when you save your project onto the SD card, you plug it in the computer and then you go into controller mode, a drive pops up. Go to that drive, automatically open up your session. So nice. But yeah, I got to come back to the audio stuff because I will say, as much as I like this platform and what they've done with the way the programs are arranged and all that, I think a glaring issue is the way audio has been implemented, because it's essentially a separate side of the way things are working. So you have the MIDI side, which you can load up drums on the pads, or slices and samples, all that stuff. You can load up various instruments, like a software instrument, or you can load up MIDI to send out to your hardware instruments or CV gates, all that stuff. So that's all great and it makes sense. You can go to like the mute page so you can mute any of those tracks right there. But if you want to use some audio tracks, you have to select audio, and then you're in like this different audio zone that's not of what's happening on the MIDI side. I really hope that the future brings a change for how audio is worked with on the standalone MPC version. Because again, 8-track limit, like, all right, I can get past that. 8 tracks, 8 stereo tracks. As long as I understand that that's my limit, that's fine. But then you have the 5-minute limit per track. So if you want to actually multi-track your audio, you have up to 5 minutes and that's it. Now, 5 minutes for some people, or I think probably most people, is going to be fine, until you start thinking about what if you want to just let it roll and capture ideas and then come back to that stuff and then chop them up. You only have 5 minutes right there. Now you could use the sampler and it will cap out at 20 minutes right there, but you're only using one stereo input on there. So if you did want to multi-track several audio track type of things, let's say you had like voice, you had maybe guitar, and you had some synths, or maybe like a drum sample or something like that, you can't just let it run for half an hour or something like that while you capture ideas. And honestly, it's probably a hardware limitation. If people are looking for this to be their only like standalone box and they don't interface with a computer ever, I think that's a pretty big limitation personally. On top of that, the way you work with the audio, like this interface I can get by with. I can be like, all right, I understand what's going on here, but you can't actually export a slice of a sample. For instance, like if we record something right here, let's say, let's record this. And now it's recording audio for me right here. I stop, so I wanna like chop this up a little bit here and there. So I got 3 pieces right here. Let's say I take this middle piece and I want to export it. As far as I'm aware, there is no way to export this piece of audio directly into like a clip or a sample or something like that. What I'm trying to illustrate here is the audio features are like secondary in my opinion. It's like, oh, here's some backing tracks. Well, it's like, well, I don't want to just work with backing tracks. I want to be able to grab this stuff, manipulate it, and then like chop it around and throw it into the MIDI stuff. Now, another reason I'd actually want to export something directly out of a audio track is it is technically time aligned to the sequence. So let's say I set up a sequence that's like 60 bars. All right. So I record audio for 60 bars right there. And let's say I want to chop out bar 50 and 51 to then put them into like a clips program or chop them into like one-shot samples that are time aligned to the tempo. Well, as far as I'm aware, you can't do that. So if I go edit, like, I would not be able to take this middle piece that I just chopped. Like I could copy this, go back to main, add another audio track, edit audio, bring the playhead back to 1, shift, paste, then I got this. So there's that, but then I think I'd have to go main. I think I have to bounce the sequence to a sample. See, like there's no export this audio track right here. Like, give me this audio track. Let me export it, man. If there is a way around this and I'm just unaware, then my apologies. I wish I had known it earlier, but as far as I can tell with this platform, I can't do what I'm trying to say. That might change the future. Akai has been really good at listening to what people have been doing with the platforms. Audio tracks, I want to see them more integrated with MIDI, and then I also want to feel like I can use the audio tracks better than what it currently is. So another issue that I have with this is, let's say you created something that's 16 bars, okay? So you got like a sequence, 16 bars. Again, you wanted to record, say like 3 minutes or something like that of your jam or your beat with an audio track. You can't do that. The audio track caps out at 16 bars right here. So once it hits 16, it's gonna like overlap or it'll stop or something like that. Illustrate the point. I'll drop this back down to 1 bar. 1 bar, hit record, edit audio. There it is, it's done. It is not recording further past that. Now I've been using this for 2 years and I've gotten by. I haven't had to use these features in the way that I'm wanting to use them. So this isn't like, a deal breaker by any means. I want to clarify that. I'm just pointing out some things that I'd love to see change in the future because there's been a lot of changes in the past 2 years. So I could see them expanding this platform even further, which I'm assuming they are. Back to the bar sequence length type of thing. I think this also is an issue for MIDI tracks as well, because the problem with the MIDI tracks is that you can't have your MIDI tracks be like 2 times or 3 times or 4 times the length of the sequence. So if I have a 1-bar sequence, I cannot have a track that goes 4 bars. Now I understand like the way around that is we'll just make a 4-bar sequence. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But let's say you have a 16-bar sequence and you want to then have something that's going to be 64 bars. So then you have to jump through hoops of making everything become 64 bars and then reducing them back down to 16 bars through the beats setting. Like, where is it? Track length. So length right here, it says sequence. So now it's like beats. So you have to do some calculations as to how many beats. It doesn't go by bars. You know, maybe if it was bars, I would feel better about that. Also, maybe it's because I'm lazy. So yeah, hopefully I'm illustrating my point here. Again, when you come back to long sequences, you know, if you've done something that's like 32 bars, or if you want to record something that's 32 bars, but you want to keep your drums 4 bars and you don't want to mess around with that stuff, it's a little bit difficult on this platform, or at least you have to jump through some mental hoops to make that happen. Whereas like if you look at Ableton, you know, the clips don't have to be locked to a certain sequence length. They can all run independently of sequence length from each other. So I actually would prefer to see something like that. So if I could have a 4-bar drums, 8-bar pad, maybe a 16-bar lead, then maybe like a 32-bar sparkle thing that goes in and out, you know, for little effects and all that, and then not have to worry about making sure my drums are the right beat length, you know, every time I adjust the master sequence to be something. Like, I feel like that'd be nice. I understand that the sequence is linked to being able to create songs and export things at the right time, so I do understand that the MPC is set up to be focused on how many bars each sequence is. But from like a hardware juggling type of perspective, I wish there was this option as well. I feel like it would be a bit more loop friendly. And again, the audio side, I mean, I think I've illustrated my point on that, but I think it's even weirder that the audio is linked to like only 4 bars and you only have 4 bars on the audio. Like, I don't know, I think that's strange. But you know, aside from that stuff, I think this platform is fantastic. I really do. So I don't mean to like dog on it. I just want to be realistic as to what my experiences have been with the MPCs, which has mostly been positive, honestly. I've had a few crashes here and there, but nothing that I haven't been able to recover from. And overall stability has been good. I've used the CV outs, and that has been awesome to interface with modular. I've done a few videos also on hooking it up to a Tascam, and again, that is a fantastic setup. You know, if you have a Tascam model 12, 16, 24, or one of the Zoom variants or something like that, so you can record audio directly to an SD card on those. That is a excellent setup, and I highly recommend it for anyone who's looking to be mostly hardware based. If you are brand new to the platform, I will say that it is a relatively steep learning curve. I'm sure if you're used to the previous MPCs, then, you know, not too bad, but there is quite a bit to this platform. I don't want to give the impression that it's super easy to learn, you know? I also don't want to give the impression that it's really difficult either. It's relatively straightforward. And then there's a lot of things that aren't straightforward. Like, it took me a while to understand how to get to the effects sends and returns. That was just a mystified piece of the software for a while for me. But it is not required to know everything about this machine right out the gate in order to make music. Like, that's the biggest takeaway from this, is that you don't need to be an expert in order to get jamming. You can just get a drum kit, you know, learn how to sample something real quick and then chop it up. And that's great. You could live on that for a long time without trying to get any more complex into the other features until you're ready to. So I'd say don't get discouraged if you do get it the first day and then go, man, scratching your head like, I'm gonna make beats with this thing. Like, I can barely figure this out. Like, it takes time for a lot of these devices. And again, if you're brand new to this type of platform, then that learning curve will be even steeper initially. As you put more time into it, obviously you're gonna get more out of it. One final note that I do wanna mention is that the price has gone up over the past 2 years. It originally launched for $700 and now I think it's $900. So there's been like a $200 increase. Obviously global economics and chip shortage type of stuff has put pressure on everything across the board. So I'm pretty sure that is the reason for those type of things. But I do wanna mention that this was a cheaper box 2 years ago. Don't really know what else to say about that aside from the chip shortage thing sucks. But yeah, that's the video. Hopefully you found something useful. If you did, a like, Subscribe and a comment below would be greatly appreciated. And you can also support us on Patreon as well. If you do sign up for the producer tier, you will get some samples, multi-samples specifically, that you can load into MPCs to be able to play, like the Model D and all that. But yeah, that's about it. I definitely recommend the MPC. Really enjoyed it over the past 2 years and looking forward to more updates and more things from Akai. And I'll see you next time for another video. Deuces.